Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today I want to talk about how I feel about Sony lying to us again. So, if you remember correctly, the other day I made a video about Ratchet and Clank possibly launching at 1080p 60. I don't feel like that's too far from the truth. I feel like that's pretty spot on. I do believe that it's going to start at 1080p in the performance mode and be upscaled using various techniques to get to a higher resolution. You know, maybe 1440p, possibly 1800p. I mean, that's going to be there, but I'm pretty sure it's going to start at 1080p. And you have to look at the type of game that Ratchet Clank is. It is a high fidelity visual experience. There's a lot going on in that game. So, is that unrealistic? I mean, me personally, I have tempered my expectations to a certain extent when it comes to PlayStation first party, because I know that all their games are going to be able to hit 4K 30, like pretty easy. They should be able to hit 4K 30, no problem. Gran Turismo 7 will probably offer two modes as well. It will have a high quality visual experience that'll probably be right around 4K 60. I'm pretty sure Polyphony can be able to get that at 4K 60. And then they will have a performance mode possibly that will crank it up to 120 at 1080p. Maybe checkerboard it up to 1440p or something. So I'm pretty sure that Gran Turismo is going to offer both of those modes, because Sony is starting to get it handed to them with the whole 120 FPS thing, and they are going to want some of that. So I expect Gran Turismo 7 to possibly have two modes. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, it is going to have that performance mode that is not going to be a 4K. I don't see that coming out native 4K at 60 frames per second. I do not think that is going to happen. 4K 30, yes, I believe that they can make that happen and have ray tracing in that. They did it with Spider-Man, but again, that will be upscaled as well, most likely. So, think about this. Sony lied to us again. They told us, I mean, my PlayStation box says 8K on it, for freaking heaven's sakes, okay? But they did try to temper our expectations at E3 when they brought out, or during that Sony State of Play, when they brought out that demo for Unreal 5, the Unreal 5 demo. That was playing at 1440p at 30 frames a second, and that blew my mind how good that looked. Like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want. I'm excited to finally see that the worlds we'll be playing in are going to start matching the level of quality of the characters we've been playing for the last generation. That is a natural evolution in video games, and that's what I was expecting. I just wasn't expecting those at 1080p. I expect them to be 1080p or 1440p 60 on the PlayStation 5, and probably 1800p on the Xbox Series X. That's kind of where I'm at with my expectations with it. I'm not expecting either one of these to be able to produce high fidelity visuals at 4K native. Like, they're both gonna, I mean, Microsoft made sure they had the technology in there to do the AI upscaling. And we have seen Forza Horizon 3 upscaled from 1080p to look like a 4K image in like a developers conference or something. We've seen that their technology works and they know how to do it. And they have baked that into Xbox Series X. I bet it was baked into Xbox One X, but it just wasn't feasible because they couldn't backport that to the Xbox One. So I'm pretty sure the technology that Microsoft's been working on has been there for the Xbox One X, but now that it's retroactively backed, or now that it's system level and native on both the Xbox Series S and Series X, we're probably going to see stuff that looks pretty good, pretty close to 4K native on the Xbox consoles. Now, I don't know what solution Sony has for this. I don't. And I can only go from experience from what I've seen that I've already bought that I have in my hands. Okay? What I have is Demon Souls. Demon Souls runs 4K 30 native or 1440p 60 frames a second. I have Godfall that runs 4K checkerboard 4K native or 1350p 60 frames a second. I have Returnal that runs 1080p upscaled to 1440p checkerboarded to 4K at 60 frames a second. I have various racing games that none of them hit 4K, but they still look pretty good, and they all run at a solid 60 frames a second. I have Spider-Man Miles Morales that is 4K 30, upscaled 4K 30 with ray tracing, or upscaled 4K at 60 frames a second for a last gen, for a game that could run on a last gen console. I have an upgraded version of Spider-Man that is also the same, but not as high fidelity as Miles Morales. This is the Miles Morales version on the PlayStation 5. I have Destruction All-Stars, which is 1800p reconstructed at 60 frames a second. So, my experience tells me that I am looking at 1440p at 60 frames a second on most of the games that will be coming to the PlayStation 5. Now we have Resident Evil Village, which is using a reconstruction technique, checkerboard rendering, to hit native 4K on both the Xbox and the PlayStation 5. So Xbox is not getting out of the woods on this one, but the performance is definitely better on the Xbox console. So I am wondering if they made the visuals, basically developed that for the PlayStation 5 and then ported that straight over to Xbox, because I kind of feel like Xbox probably could have ran that at native 4K. But I feel like, because I mean, when you turn on the video game and you look at the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X version on the demo, they looked literally the same. Like they literally looked the same, like the same checkerboard fuzz in the hair, exactly, like everything looked the same. All the fine detail and everything looked the same. It looked identical. Like the only reason I bought it on my Xbox is because I have storage on my Xbox that was available so that I could put that on there. If you take the PlayStation 5 for what it is a 1440p 60 frame a second, or upscaled. You know, some games are going to be able to upscale to 4K, but most of the time we're going to see a lot of 4K 30. You know, I mean, that more curated experience like Resident Evil. Resident Evil looks amazing on either system. Doesn't matter. I mean, it looks great. So basically, is what I'm getting at is Sony cheaped out on this hardware and did their whole market speak thing again. If you're coming from a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 4 Pro, then the results you're getting are pretty undeniably great. Like there's no denying that. You're gonna look at, like, you're gonna watch my video and think, man, you're crazy, dude. You are freaking crazy. Yeah, I get that, but I had an Xbox One X and a PlayStation 4 Pro. I saw the difference of what a half-ass console and a good build for a half lifestyle upgrade looks like. I got the best of both worlds And I mean, yeah, Sony first party games like The Last of Us 2 and God of War looked freaking amazing, and they pushed that console pretty hard. But on the other hand, you had games that were running native 4K on the Xbox One X. Like Forza 7 right now holds up really well. And that's the thing. Any game that was upgraded to Xbox One X and got like better visuals and better textures and stuff like that, they look amazing on Xbox Series X. They look freaking beautiful. If they had dynamic resolution or uncapped frame rate, you get the best of everything. You are totally living large. So yeah, I mean it sucks. I expected more out of PlayStation coming out this console generation. Like I was pretty disappointed, and like I was in denial when I first got the Xbox One X. If it wasn't for people like Crap Gamer and MBG, me watching their videos, and Mads, like, well, I'm not gonna put Mads and Cole Eastwood in that or Dealer in that like Crap Gamer or MBG thing, because they've stayed true and they've stuck to their and they've stuck to Xbox pretty well. But the other two flip flopped and went to PlayStation, and now they're going to be on the other side, singing how wonderful PlayStation is, and that's fine. I mean, but if it wasn't for them, I would have never broke down that wall I had built up. That Sony fanboy wall that Microsoft was garbage and PlayStation was the best and blah blah blah. And like that's just not the case. That is not the case. I've been playing video games for 35 years. Sony makes great first party games, but their systems have always been crap. Their systems have always been low powered. The PlayStation 4 was literally the first time they had the more powerful console. Xbox has always been more powerful. 360 was more powerful than PS5. PS5's cell chip was pretty powerful. I'll give it that. It was pretty powerful, but nobody could develop good for it, so everything looked like crap. Whereas the Xbox 360 was developed was a more powerful console, and a lot of games looked a lot better. And that's even more apparent today when you put a 360 game on the Xbox Series S or the Xbox Series X, and the resolution is upscaled to 4K. The textures and everything just look really freaking good. Whereas on PlayStation, that's not the case. It looks terrible. Anything you play on the PS Now, the older games, they look like garbage. They look bad. Even the ones that aren't upscaled on the Xbox look a lot better. So, I mean, 25 years, Sony has always had the least powerful console. The first PlayStation was 32 megabytes for freak's sake? 32-bit. Oh no, 32-bit. And then the PlayStation, the PlayStation 2, I mean, the Dreamcast was more powerful than the PlayStation 2. If you think about it, it definitely looked a lot sharper. You also had the GameCube, which was more powerful than the GameCube was the last most powerful console Nintendo made. And then you had Xbox, the original Xbox, which was way more powerful than the PlayStation 2. Like, you look at Splinter Cell on PlayStation 2 and Xbox, and it's like night and day. It looks way better on Xbox. So, the only thing PlayStation has going for them is their exclusives. They have always made a weaker console, and I'd always been fine with that for the most part. But now we are getting into the age of resolution, and my eyes not being as good as they used to be. So I like that higher resolution. A lot of people say, "Oh, that doesn't matter." For me, it does. That clarity is what matters. I really appreciate that high level visual experience. Now, some games will look good without it, like Judgment, the Xbox Series X version that just came out. That's running at a 1440p, and the background looks pretty blurry, but the game looks fine in 1440p. Like, I'm not saying everything has to be 4K, but it has to be a minimum of 1440p. And I would prefer that native over checkerboard any day of the week. Because if you look at the recently released Nair Replicant, it runs at 1440p on the Xbox. But the size of that game with how big it is, it should be. I really hope they update that and give it a 4K makeover for both consoles. That would be the ideal thing to do. But for the most part, yeah, Sony lied to us again. They made an inferior console that, honestly, they just cheaped out on this thing. They definitely cheaped out on it. But I mean, when you're going up against Microsoft, you know, what can you really do? So I guess we're just going to have another generation of Sony magic, because that's what they sell, is magic. You know, I mean, I remember when I was younger, Sony used to be like that top brand for electronics and, you know, new technologies and stuff. Since the advent of the smartphone, you've seen companies like Samsung really take off, and Sony hasn't really been doing that great. And the reason is because Sony's always had that, you know, the thing that Jim Ryan's trying to do with it right now is have that premium price, you know, like Apple or something, but it just never really translated past the early 2000s. Yeah, it just didn't go past that. I mean, they've lost a lot of business and a lot of things, and if they don't turn this PlayStation thing around soon and start offering Game Pass is going to kill them. I think Game Pass is definitely going to take a pretty good chunk out of Sony this generation, and I don't think they saw it coming. And when you got somebody like Jim Ryan saying, "Oh yeah, well, that's just not sustainable for us," well, Jim, I got 2 words for you. Maybe stop producing only one and done games that, I mean, granted, I love them. I love those kind of games, but you're going to have to move with the times, man, because older people like myself, we don't want to be cheated no more. Like, especially when we got Xbox we can go to and get a better experience all around, not just with first party, but all around better experience. Like, your first party games are great, Sony. They are amazing. But let me tell you, everything else, third party that was made for the PlayStation 5 looks like shit or made for PS4 Pro, looks like crap on my PlayStation 5. It doesn't even hold a candle to the Xbox One X version. Not even close. Your games look great, but customers are going to want that. Customers are going to start wanting that whole freaking ecosystem to be pretty close, you know? I mean, you go out and you buy a PlayStation game, it looks amazing. But then you buy an Ubisoft game and it looks like crap. Like, yeah, that user experience can't be that fragmented forever. And with Xbox, that visual experience treads that line pretty much all the way across. You can't keep having your games look better than everybody else's and expect, you know, people like me to continue to keep buying. Yeah, I mean, if you're subsidizing this PlayStation 5, Sony, you're losing a lot of money, because I was one of those people that I buy a lot of games, and all that subsidy money's going to Microsoft above and beyond what I've probably paid for my Xbox Series X in subsidies like 3 times already, just in the last 6 months. So, yeah, I don't know, Sony. I mean, yeah, that I hope that extra $10 that you decided to charge us for this lackluster experience was really worth it in the end, because honestly, this might be the end for PlayStation if you guys don't turn this ship around. Because, yeah, it's pretty bad. Well, I've said my angry PlayStation rant today. I'll probably do one of these every week, probably, you know, because that's how often I get disappointed with Sony. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you.